My goodness, welcome back to another episode of Learn to Play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's another chain video, y'all. Will the chain ever end? I don't know, but in today's video, we are talking priority in the chain, or basically how do we legally structure a chain. Again, as we start getting into more of these kind of more complex, topics, I need to give a little disclaimer that your girl's been playing for a year and my verbiage might not be entirely accurate. I love to say things like missed timing when you miss a trigger because you missed the time that you can activate the trigger, but apparently that's not what it's actually called. So go easy on me. Anyway, let's get into it. We're talking the chain again. Okay, so to review, a chain in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is whenever a card activates. So if you are activating a card, you are starting a chain and you can resolve a chain of one. Hi, Alphonse. But if your opponent wants to respond, or even if you want to respond to your own chain, you can do so, and we resolve backwards. In order to build a chain, we do have to talk about activation or like timing windows. So ignition effects are things like normal summon Dormouse, and then it has the ignition effect of during the main phase. That is, for the most part, going to always be chain link 1. I can activate it on my turn. Next, we have trigger effects. Those are going to say, like, if this monster is normal or special summoned, if this blah, blah, blah. And those can be on either player's turn, but the trigger has to be met. And then we have quick effects. Quick effects will also use if wording, but they will also use when wording. And we talked about that in the last video, that if you have a card that says when, you have to chain directly to the thing of the when. So if it's when your opponent activates a card or effect. So if you're chain 2, when your opponent activates a card or effect, chain 1 better be your opponent activating a card or effect. And quick effects can also be activated on either player's turn. Quick effects can also include quick play spells. You can activate quick play spells from your hand on your turn, or you can set them face down and then activate them on your opponent's turn. The chain has a very, I'm so sorry. I hit him. Sorry. The chain has a very specific way of being structured. And so I'm going to show you this handy dandy little graphic I made, because if you've ever tried learning the chain in Yu-Gi-Oh, you've probably seen the flowchart. And no hate to the flowchart, but I hate the flowchart. Okay, so here's my little handy dandy visual aid that I made. So when we are ordering a chain, so we talked about like the timing that things can happen, right? So within that timing structure, within that activation structure, we have to form our chain in a certain order. So think of this like a checklist. So an open game state is when nothing has started a chain, and turn player will always get prio. So for example, at the beginning of a game of Yu-Gi-Oh, we're going to move through our phases. So if I'm turn player, I can activate quick effects during my draw phase. If I don't have any, I have to ask you, non-turn player, hey, do you have any quick effects? Then we move to, standby, and then we move to main. So turn player always gets priority to make any actions during a phase. So during main phase, I can normal summon. That does not start a chain. Continuous lingering effects don't start a chain. Changing battle positions don't start a chain. Setting a card doesn't start a chain. I have it there on the bottom, right, left. I guess it depends how. I have it at the bottom. So priority is always turn player. If I'm turn player, I will always have priority to take actions. So let's say I have normal summoned. After every action, it becomes an opportunity for you as the non-turn player to do a response. And we always work through this order, even if it doesn't always apply. Like what we're always technically doing is we're looking hey, are there any mandatory effects? No? Okay. Do I, as the turn player, have any triggers? Let's say I normal summon Cupsy, and it has the if this card is special summoned trigger to search. Okay, let's say I just normal summon Dormouse. So nope, I don't have any turn player triggers. Then we go to you. Do you have any non-turn player triggers? Has anything triggered for you that you would like to activate now? No? Okay, do I have any quick effects? No? Okay, do you have any quick effects? No? Okay, now turn player, I can take my actions, whether that be now doing my ignition effect or special summoning, like link summoning. So we're going to go through a couple of examples, keeping this graphic in mind of this is how we form a chain. This is also what allows us to do something called chain blocking. So chain blocking is when you try to protect the effects of a card by making it so that like Ash Blossom says, when your opponent, is trying to add a card from deck to hand, that has to respond directly to opponent doing that. So we're going to look at a couple examples, which is known as chain blocking, because we form the chain in this order all the time, forever and ever. Okay, so let's get into some examples. Okay, so let's say that I am turn player and I have used the effect of Cookie Yummy Way. That says when your opponent activates a card or effect. So you had a spell set, right? You activated your spell, so that met the when condition for when your opponent activates a card or effect. You can return this card to the extra deck, semicolon. So it goes for cost. Immediately upon activating Cookie Yummy Way, it goes back to the extra deck, regardless of if it's going to resolve or not. Cost is paid. Special summon up to 2 yummy monsters from your graveyard. You don't have any response, so we resolve backwards. Cookie Yummy Way is going to allow me to special summon 2 yummy monsters from my graveyard, and then whatever spell you activated, you're going to resolve it. So on a new chain, I have now brought back Cupsy and Cookie. They both have an if this card is normal or special summoned trigger effect. So this is what I'm saying, for every time that a chain is forming, we're looking at this checklist. So we go, any mandatory effects? In this example, no. Turn player triggers. I have 2 triggers. Cupsy to search, Cookie to target one of your monsters and have it lose 1,000 attack. It 100% matters how I choose to order them, and I get to choose how to order them. I can choose how to order all of my trigger effects because all trigger effects go on the chain before anything else. So let's say I do chain 1 Cookie to target and have lose 1,000, chain 2 Cupsy to search. If I choose to order it that way, you can now do chain 3 Ash Blossom, because Ash Blossom says when a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects. So if I do chain 1 Cookie, chain 2 Cupsy, Cupsy does include the effect to add from deck to hand, which meets the requirement for Ash Blossom. But I can chain block, meaning I can do chain 1 Cupsy to search, chain 2 Cookie to target and have one of your monsters lose 1,000 attack. You can no longer Ash the Cupsy. So chain blocking helps protect specifically like our searches or things that we are trying to avoid triggering a when effect that our opponent might have. Like Ash is a great example. So this is called chain blocking because I have blocked you from being able to respond to the Cupsy. Remember, when effects have to respond exactly to the thing it says. When your opponent activates a card or effect that has any of these 3 things, add a card from deck to hand, special summon from the deck, send a card from deck to graveyard. Cookie's not doing that. Cookie's not doing any of that. So you can't chain 3 Ash. But if I did chain 1 Cookie, chain 2 Cupsy, yay, chain 3 Ash. Chain 1 Cupsy, chain 2 Cookie, you can't Ash. You could, however, do chain 3 Imperm, because it could have already been set on your field and it just says target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects. So you could Imperm my Cupsy. You're not going to be able to Ash it if I chain block. So when we're working through the chain, we check mandatory effects, turn player triggers. I order all of my triggers. Let's say there's non-turn player triggers. You order all of your triggers too. So if I have 2 triggers, let's say you have 2 triggers, we're going to fill up chain 4 if we choose to activate them. Now remember, you don't have to activate your trigger effects, but if you don't do it when it's triggered, you're going to have to wait for it to get triggered again. So all the trigger effects are going to go on the chain before we do anything like Ash or Imperm. And this is where it gets tricky because let's say you as a non-turn player, you have the Ash in hand for my Cupsy. But let's say you also have a trigger effect. You're going to have to choose which one to do. Okay, we're going to do the same type of example where I'm turn player and I am playing Yummy. So let's say during my turn, it is a game state where I do not have any triggers. I haven't done anything to start a chain. And you decide, because that's the thing, you can start a chain at any point in this list. So you can start a chain with non-turn player quick effects. So let's say I normal summon. I don't do anything. I don't want to use any of the effects of my normal summon. And then we go through all of this and you go, oh, I do have a quick effect. Let's say you quick effect Fimena. During the main phase, quick effect, you can discard this card, fusion summon one dragon or spellcaster monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. I chain 2 Cookie. You have activated a card or effect. So we are now going to resolve backwards. Cookie already sent for cost. I am going to special summon 2 from grave. I'm going to special summon Cupsy. I'm going to special summon Cookie. You are going to now resolve Fimena, and you are going to summon Arthalion, and you are going to send, let's just say, a random monster that you have in hand, and also a Dracotail Malulu. Okay, let's look at all of these. Okay, so once again, now we have all this stuff has happened. I have summoned Cupsy and Cookie from grave. You have sent Malulu to grave, and you have summoned Arthalion. So now we're gonna go through the list. Any mandatory effects? Nope. Turn player triggers. So let's say I do chain 1 Cookie, chain 2 Cupsy. So let's say I leave my search open. I say chain 1 Cookie, chain 2 Cupsy. You have 2 trigger effects that you can also put on the chain. So if we look at Malulu, it says if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can set 1 Dracotail spell trap from your deck, and then you can negate the effects of 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Arthalion says if this card is fusion summoned, you can target monsters on the field and our graveyard up to the number of monsters used as materials from the hand, return them to the hand. But let's say you also have the Ash in hand. You have to do your triggers before you could do the Ash. And at that point, you can no longer Ash the Cupsy. So if I do chain 1 Cookie, chain 2 Cupsy to search, and let's say you do chain 3 Ash to stop the search, well, you're choosing to not do your triggers. You're not going to do your triggers because all of your trigger effects have to go on the stack first. So you have to make the choice between doing a quick effect or your triggers because we have to go in this order. Mandatory, turn player triggers, non-turn player triggers. They all go on the stack. So let's say, not the stack. That was my magic player coming out. The chain, sorry y'all. Chain 1 Cookie. Chain 2 Cupsy. Let's say then you do chain 3 Malulu, chain 4 Arthalion. So we would resolve backwards. Arthalion, you would choose my monsters to return them to hand. Let's say you use 1 monster from hand, so you return my Cookie. Keep in mind, returning to hand is not negating. My effects will still go through, but then we would resolve Malulu. You would set a Dracotail spell trap, and then let's say you negate my Cupsy. Then we would resolve Cupsy. Cupsy resolves negated because it was negated by the Malulu. And then we would resolve Cookie. Cookie would still cause one of your monsters to lose 1,000. So I'm back on Malice. I'm playing Malice. I activate Backup Adagnister in my hand to special summon. This is going to trigger where did you go? Is it this one? This one. And this one's going to trigger the Orgia. So let's say you're playing Enneacraft and you had Orgia set face down. So I am going to activate Backup Adagnister in hand, attempt a special. This says when, so it has to be in direct response. If I can somehow chain block it, which I never say never with Yu-Gi-Oh, but I can't think of a way where that's going to happen in this regard. But I'm going to activate Ignister in hand to attempt a special. This is now meeting the when condition of Orgia. When your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand, quick effect, you can change this face down card to face up defense position and add an Enneacraft card from deck to hand. So I could now chain Ash because you are attempting to add, but I don't have it. So we resolve backwards. Orgia is going to flip face up and you're going to add. Ignister is going to special summon itself. Notice Orgia has flip, destroy 1 monster your opponent controls. This is what's known as a mandatory effect. So mandatory effects are things like flip effects are just, there's not you can, and it has to happen on the flip. And there's no choice. So destroy 1 monster your opponent controls. So this has to be chain 1. It's not your turn, Enneacraft player. Chain 1 is a mandatory effect. Chain 1, destroy 1 monster your opponent controls. Now we go turn player triggers. I have a backup add Ignister trigger, which says if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Dark Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand, except backup add Ignister, and then discard one card. So you chain 1, target to destroy the Ignister. Chain 2, turn player triggers, search. My search will still go through, because remember, destroying, sending to graveyard, banishing, those are not negating effects. So my effect will still go through, and then she'll get destroyed. But you could also choose to destroy the Link monster, the Cyberse monster that was special summoned from the extra deck that allowed me to activate this in hand. So again, things that have the flip, destroy one monster your opponent controls, that's a mandatory effect. So that's why it's at the very top of this list. So we go through mandatory effects. So chain 1 has to be the Orgia. It's a mandatory effect. Chain 2, turn player triggers. And then we look at at non-turn player triggers. At this point with Enneacraft, I believe it's Leon is the one that if you're attempting to add would trigger. So chain 1 would be the mandatory effect of Orgia. Then we go turn player triggers. Backup add Ignister to search. Now, this is now triggered. It's not Leon, it's Alazonia, which says when your opponent activates a card or effect that includes the effect to add a card from deck to hand, quick effect, you can change this face down card to face up position and add. So then now we go through, do I have any turn player quick effects? Let's say I have Imperm, right? Non-turn player quick effects. You might have just a quick play spell that you have set, right? You might have a trap card that you have set. Let's say we just end it here with triggers, right? Let's say we've resolved backwards. So Alzonia is going to flip and let you add. Backup Ignister is going to add and then discard. And then Orgia is going to destroy one of my monsters. Now on a new chain, we have another flip effect. This is mandatory. Flip, banish face up one random card from your opponent's hand until the end phase. Let's say I have a quick play spell in my hand that I really, really, really don't want to get popped. Let's say I'm turn player, remember? So let's say I have Forbidden Droplets, so I could activate it from hand. So I have droplets, and I can send any number of other cards from hand and or field to the graveyard, choose that many effect monsters till the end of the turn. Their attack is halved, and their effects are negated. So mandatory chain 1 is the flip effect. Turn player triggers, no. Non-turn player triggers, no. Turn player quick effects, yes, I am going to chain droplets. So this is where the order would matter of doing turn player quick effects before non-turn player quick effects. It's complicated. This took me quite a while, especially I would try to, just like a week ago, I tried to chain Ash to my own card effect. That says when your opponent, right? But it really is something, if you get in the habit of when you're playing, whenever a chain is starting, checking, are there any mandatory effects? Turn player triggers. Okay, non-turn player triggers, and you get to order them however you want. Turn player quick effects, non-turn player quick effects, and if nothing is occurring, turn player always has prio. So for example, as turn player, I can activate ignition effects, and then activating, whenever you activate, then my ignition effect would be chain 1. Okay, that was a lot. Y'all. I hope this was helpful. I will probably do more chain examples just from like filming my own games and trying to keep track of when I notice a juicy chain is forming, and we can try to break it down. Hopefully the visual was useful. It really is just kind of a checklist to go through whenever anyone takes an action. Remember, a chain is when a card activates. So I normal summon. I have not started a chain, but we still technically, after my normal summon, we still go through everything. No mandatory effects, no turn player triggers, no non-turn player triggers. I don't have any quick effects that I'm planning on activating, because you do ask me that first. So I normal summon. We go through all of it. I do have prio if I have any quick effects. So normally you'll just ask like, hey, do you have any quick effects? No? Okay. Now you can start the chain on my turn. Chain 1, a quick effect that you have set, right? Or a quick effect like some of the Dominus cards that you can activate from hand, but like the chain can start at any point in that, but you go through it all the time after everything. And if I start a chain as chain 1, then we still go through and see like, did you have anything that me starting that chain triggered? That has to go first. And then we go through everything. So it's just a good habit to get into of, after every action, taking the time to kind of go through that checklist. And remember that the chain can start at any point in that checklist. And we always resolve backwards, and that the activation window or the timing of when things can be activated does matter. When has to be in direct response. If you have trigger effects and quick effects that you want to activate, you're gonna have to pick between the two, because we always form the chain in that order. Yeah. Alphonse, do you want to say bye? Come here. Okay, here's the baby. He's being a decent baby today. He keeps trying to eat these little berries outside, though. Bad babies. Sometimes bad babies, but cute babies. Okay, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.